I like the time boxing aspect to it because it's a short, it's an experiment that we can fail.
Mm.
We can not learn something, and that actually teaches us something about what we're trying to do in a way where we say, okay, that's not going to work. Maybe we have to look at something completely different. So I like the fact that it's a forcing function. I think it's very agile. So I think your summary is quite right.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Real Agile or BS. I'm your host, Peter Saddington at AgilePeter, and I'm with my colleague from Agile for All at AgileBob. It's AgileBob. It's Bob Hartman. Welcome, guys. We love to answer all of your questions, frequently asked questions around Agile, and we want to make sure that you guys have a good picture, at least from our perspective, as to whether these ideas are real Agile or BS. We're going to be taking on a topic today. It's called spikes. So let's get into that, Bob. Tell us first, what is a spike?
Well, I think a spike is, it's a very loose definition of what a spike is. But in my way of looking at it, a spike is some research we do in order to get an answer to a question prior to actually working on something. So in my classes, I basically say, a spike would be research you do in order to be able to even estimate the item in many cases. So for me, that's my definition. How about you, Peter? What do you use as a definition?
That's perfect. I actually use the same exact word. When it comes to spike, I usually substitute with a research task or a research story, but I often qualify, at least to my class and to my students, that three things need to happen after that spike has been researched. So I'll give you a little bit of context. Let's say that we're looking at a build versus buy scenario when it comes to development teams. Should we buy something off the shelf, or should we look for an open source opportunity or roll our own or build that function or feature ourselves? This might be a great opportunity for a spike, which is a research opportunity to say, hey, we need to learn about this and see whether we can learn enough to make an informed decision. The three things that I like to tell my classes and my clients is, after a spike happens, three things. Number one, you have to document what you learned. Number two, you have to share it. And number three, spikes should be time boxed. And I like to say that because I don't want to have a spike go the entire, like, say, 2-week sprint. Spikes, I often like to say, as a rule of thumb, number three, time boxed to 2 to 3 days. So it shouldn't take up the entire sprint length. And so again, it is a research opportunity to see what we need to do so we can make an informed decision around it. We need to document it, we need to share it, and it needs to be time boxed. So in your opinion, AgileBob, are spikes real Agile or is it BS?
Well, before I answer, I want to give you a little feedback on that. I like the time boxing piece. I think if you give a really smart person research to do, I think they can do it forever because, as I say, Google never runs out of links. So
True.
You can just get down into the rabbit hole. So I think that's a really good addition. I like that. As far as whether spikes are real Agile or BS, I think we have to call them real Agile. The only other option is to say that they're BS and you're not going to do them. And that seems wrong because if I don't do the research, then I'm starting to do big design up front. I'm making decisions that are huge. It just doesn't seem right to me. So spikes as research, kind of an experiment to see if we can learn about this particular topic. I think it's very aligned with agility.
Absolutely. I would agree as well. I think spikes are a great way for teams to try to figure out the unknown. Right, especially when it comes to new ideas or new emergent functions or features that the team needs. Often, I've often said to my classes is that spikes can be something that naturally emerges during product backlog refinement or product backlog grooming, especially if we're grooming a sprint or two ahead in the backlog. New ideas could emerge, and those are opportunities to say, hey, whoa, before we start trying to break this down, we just don't know enough about it. So let's spike this one, let's spike this idea. It can be something that we can research during this sprint for the next sprint, or it could be something that we add into the sprint a little bit later. But yes, I would say that a spike falls under the larger umbrella of Agile. It's one of those tactical things that I think development teams need to do from time to time. And so I wouldn't say that it's BS in any way, but I wouldn't say that it's it solely falls under the umbrella of Agile. It is a good development thing to do whenever you're bucking up against something that is unknown or something that you haven't done before. So research, and I also like the word that you use, experiments. Spikes can certainly be small experiments that a development team can do as well to make sure that some functionality works or something like that. So I would agree with you. So are we summarizing it up? Spikes fall under the real Agile moniker. Is that okay?
Yeah, I think so. And I think it really falls under the category of even splitting stories. As you said, a lot of times during backlog refinement, you'll find you don't know enough information about something. And on our famous story splitting poster, one of the ways to split a story is to break out a spike. And so I can say, let's put the spike story into this sprint, and let's see if we can learn what we need to do the actual work in the next sprint. So I think it's very aligned with agility. You're right, it's a great practice overall. Certainly waterfall teams could use this practice as well and don't, but I like the time boxing aspect to it because it's an experiment that we can fail. We can not learn something, and that actually teaches us something about what we're trying to do in a way where we say, okay, that's not going to work. Maybe we have to look at something completely different. So I like the fact that it's a forcing function. I think it's very agile. So I think your summary is quite right.
Perfect. We'll take it. Thanks, guys, for joining us in today's episode of Real Agile or BS. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Make sure that you subscribe and smash the like button because we do like that. That helps us with the Google algorithm and spreading the word out there. Thanks again for joining us. I'm AgilePeter with AgileBob signing out, and we'll see you guys next time.